Hi, I'm Dr. Rob Silverman, Amazon best-selling author of Inside Out Health and host of Proven Health Alternatives. Today's guest, Dr. Patrick Porter, is the developer of the BrainTap headset. Without question, Dr. Porter has an impressive resume. He's written 6 books. He's appeared in multiple magazines. He just came back from a worldwide tour speaking about brain health. He really covers some interesting topics like brain neurogenesis, what brain tapping is, why it's good for everybody, and the overall theory of how we start with a perfect brain and through life our brain deteriorates. Brain Tap can help you avoid that specific issue. Hey everybody, Dr. Rob Silverman here, host of Proven Health Alternatives. I've got one of my esteemed colleagues, a leader in brain health, Dr. Patrick Porter. Dr. Porter, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. This is exciting.
This is going to be really exciting. I know our listeners and our followers really, I said the word brain, everybody looked up and is already locked in. So I'd like to give everybody a little background on you. I work with Dr. Porter. I have his particular device, BrainTap. My wife and I use it, but Dr. Porter is a PhD and he's the developer of BrainTap headset, technology distinctively designed to balance brainwave activity while activating the brain's neuroplasticity. We're going to talk about neuroplasticity. We need to define that for them.
Right.
More than 1,900 health clinics worldwide use BrainTap to address the stress component of health and wellness. Dr. Porter has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, People, Entrepreneur, and Inc. magazines on ABC, NBC, CBS, and even the Discovery Channel. He is the head of mind-based studies at Quantum University and is a licensed trainer of NLP. You're the author of 6 books, including the popular Thrive and Overdrive, How to Navigate Overloaded Lifestyle. How do you do it all in a day?
Well, I have a great staff. And as they say, writing's editing. So my wife's an editor. So it's good to marry your editor, get it all done. And then I love to speak. So I have my own recording studio. So that's how I get most of my work done. When I'm not on the road, that's what I'm doing. I'm fortunate that I get to be creating. I don't really have a clinic anymore other than our research facility. So, and we have our researchers now, so I can kind of sit back and just do what I love, which is fun.
Yeah, well, you know what? And that's great. And we had a quick conversation. So quickly for you, define for everybody what neuroplasticity is.
Okay. Well, as we get older, they used to think the brain was fixed, but now about the year 2000, actually, they said this was the time of the brain. And then they started doing research and they realized that our brain actually changes. So our brain is different today than it was yesterday. And because it's part of the nervous system and the nervous system is adaptive, so is the brain. So as 70% of your nervous system in the brain, let's say that you get faced with a challenge, it either adapts and improvises and overcomes that challenge, or it atrophies and then locks in the limitations. So what we want to do is we want to bust out of that and get it working. Our brain is very efficient at shutting down, saving energy. So it's trying to stop that process. But we know now for good brain health, they call it neural sprouting now. We can, through chiropractic care, through brain tapping, through light sound technology, laser technology, all these things stimulate the neuroplasticity that happens. So think of it like getting an upgrade on your computer. Your computer speed has to do with how quickly you can run neurons across the silicon chip, right? So our brain doesn't have silicon chip, but it has myelin sheets and all these dendrite connections and all these different things that happen. They call that whole network neuroplasticity, and it changes all the time. We're never the same unless as we get older, we don't do anything, we don't change. That's why it's so important we don't sit in front of the TV and just veg out every night. We need to challenge our brain to keep that going.
That's great. I mean, neuroplasticity, the ability, plastic to brain, neural nerves allows for what we call brain neurogenesis, new nerve endings to grow back.
Yes.
And that's great. So tell me a little bit about BrainTap. What is it and how it helps with this?
Okay, so BrainTap is a tool that I helped to create. I was one of 6 people. We created a way to help people get out of their beta brain. So what beta brain is, for those that understand the nervous system, we have a healing brain and we have a survivor brain, right? We usually call that the parasympathetic and sympathetic system. But when we get locked into our sympathetic system, we can't turn on healing, which happens in parasympathetic. So using light, sound, and vibration, we figured out a way to trigger the brain basically using its own mechanism. The brain is always looking at its environment. There's a part of the brain called the reticular activating system. And it's always looking for things that are new, different. Is it a challenge? Is it a danger? So ours isn't a danger, but it doesn't know that because we're using flashing lights in the eyes, retinal flashing. We're using lights in the ears, which we can go into a little bit and talk about that. We're using tones. We're also using, some people know binaural beats, but that's only one piece of the equation. We also use isochronic tones, and we use music. And the nice thing is when you're wearing our headset, which has a visor, you can actually get different regions of the brain to activate using different tones, because our cell phones are now really like, if it was back in the 70s, they'd be like a Cray computer. I mean, there's so much technology built into our cell phones that we're able to use the technology of the system. It's high fidelity, so we can do that. And now we can broadcast into the brain different regions. And what light, sound, and vibration does is we can guide it through a similar, it's very similar to sleep, that as we go through these different cycles, what we're going to do is we're going to train the brain. And the nicest thing about it is you don't have to do anything. If you put this on, relax, we say let it happen. The word let means no way help or hinder the process. So you don't have to try to do anything, just let go and do it. And we find that about 65% of the people at the very first session will actually reach the levels of the brain, primary brain states of alpha and theta. And those are pain-free states. When we invented this technology, it was all about getting people out of pain, and we didn't have neurofeedback back in the 80s. So we've come a long way, but back then we had what's called biofeedback. We'd use hand temperature, respiration, breathing rates, heart rate. So now we have all of that. So what BrainTap does is it does the same thing people are trying to accomplish now with neurofeedback, but our studies show we can do in 10 sessions what neurofeedback practitioners can't even do in 40, because we can actually get the brain to change because of and we can talk a little bit about it, but the science is called frequency following response. That's what's happening.
Wow. I took a step back. Neurosprouting. Fabulous term.
Yes.
Love it. Love it. Wrote it down. Keeping notes here. Okay. What does it mean when they say people are brain tapping?
Okay, so what happens is when you put this on, your eyes are closed, you're relaxing. It's very much like you're taking either a power nap. It could take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or it could take, we have longer sessions for that. Like we have dental procedures where 3 hours. People will do it while they're getting a dental procedure. But what it means is they're actually rebooting and recharging their brain. We show with a piece of technology that we worked with a group out of Europe, and they put together a program. We call it HRV, but it's really data pulse analysis. We can evaluate your nervous system. And the exciting thing for me is the National Institute of Health has asked me to come and present in May in Cleveland to their symposium of proven integrative health technologies. I get to go and present BrainTap and our HRV because we were able to show that during one 10-minute session of BrainTap, you actually can effectively change. This was 100 people. The average was 30% neurological change in a positive change. So that means that the nervous system is going. And then the reason they're having us talk is if you do BrainTap 3 times a week for a month, that becomes your neurological norm. And that's important because your nervous system is your age, really. I mean, if your nervous system isn't working right, people will age faster. A lot of the doctors that might be listening understand this, but the spine is the motor that runs the brain. If you're not getting the signals, the brain is sending signals. It's like you could have the greatest broadcasting station in the universe, but if there's no way to pick it up or send signals back and forth, it doesn't matter. And the same thing's true about the body. We need to get the brain in the spine working together. There's a saying also in yoga that says you're only as young as your spine is flexible. So all of this works, and we show that when we work with especially functional neurologists or chiropractors, when they can do the work they do, because whether you're using right eye or using all these different technologies, working on scods, whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to warm their nervous system up. So now you've kind of like tilled the soil. It's ready to go. Now we're ready to plant some seeds. We want to get it growing. That's that neurosprouting we were talking about. That's where BrainTap comes in. So for that 20 minutes after an adjustment, people can do that. And what happens is now they're telling their nervous system, hey, this is the correct nervous system position. Hopefully the spine's been aligned. They're working with it, and the brain starts to adjust. And then that's when innate intelligence takes over and does it. In in India, what's really fascinating is they showed that when we're born, we have this energy reservoir. We all know this. And then, of course, during the day, it drains. But they know that in deep sleep, that's when your nervous system actually gets to rest. What we find with BrainTap is if you can get rid of some of that stress, whether it takes 10 minutes, 15 or 20 minutes during the day, now you can reach those deeper levels of sleep. So you're preparing yourself, or what we like to say, inoculating yourself against the stresses. They actually call this like neuropreventative. So you have to get the body ready, just like an athlete would warm up their muscles. We can warm up the brain. And a lot of the schools we work with, which we're working with Duke University, São Paulo University in Brazil, 3 universities in India. These universities are getting their students to even just do the app. So what they do is because they need to reboot too. So it's all about preparing the brain and getting it ready. So many people they think, if we didn't change the oil in our car, our engine wouldn't last very long. So we need to learn to reboot our brain because inflammation, we have to put out the fires of inflammation. So many people are like trying to paint the inside of their house while it's on fire. You've got to, and so when you get the brain into the right brainwave states, like when you get the alpha theta balance that you need while you're awake, your brain, the inflammation goes down. Your body knows how to do it, but if it's not in the right brain state, the change doesn't happen.
Interesting. So who can benefit from BrainTap?
Okay. Well, we primarily, the history of the evolution of BrainTap was we started with pain clinics because people in pain, they can't do biofeedback. They can't do neurofeedback. They're in too much pain. So we have to get the conscious mind out of there. So they're really good. We're very successful. We did a pain study with the American Pain and Wellness where we took 30 people, and during the study over a 10-week time period, within 10 weeks, 97% of the people in the study were able to be pain-free for the day between their BrainTap session, which is incredible. These were people in the study that had botched surgeries, and no pain medicine would help them. So these are people that don't understand. The pills don't work with them. So we have opioid receptors in our brain. So when we relax and we get the brain tuned up, those opioid receptors turn on. We have our own natural, just like if you get hit in the head with a baseball or something like that, you see white. Well, they now know that when your brain processes the color white, you've actually released your own morphine in your body. Your own body's morphine receptors are hit. That's how your body protects itself. It says, hey, pain is not located in the body, it's located in the brain. So it's a signaling system. So that's number one. Number two, in my first book, I wrote Awaken the Genius because we use it in schools. The states of theta, alpha and theta, you create a state called hypermnesia. That means supermemory. So when you're in these hypermnesia states, like they say that Einstein operated in alpha all the time. That's why he had access to all this creativity and ingenious thought. Most of us, as we get better looking and more intelligent with age, certain things happen to our brain, and there's a brainwave there called SMR. SMR stands for sensory motor rhythm. It has to do with the vestibular system and balance, and also has to do with how we get our long-term memories into our short-term memory and how we get our short-term memories into our long-term. But as we get older, unfortunately, that atrophies. So we did a study with a chiropractor who wrote a book called Saving Your Brain down in Florida. His name is Dr. Kelly Miller. And he took women 55 to 65. And before the study, they were all diagnosed by their medical doctor. You have dementia. There's really not much we can do. Tell your family they're going to have to take care of you. The next step is Alzheimer's. We took them. The only thing they did, one every 72 hours, because your nervous system is going to try to reset every 72 hours. So 3 times a week, they came into the clinic. We did BrainTap with them. And he uses a device called the New Mind. It's able to register neuroplasticity. So it takes a picture, like a mind map of the brain, where you're at. And then it gives you a percentage of change after a treatment or therapy. Within 6 weeks, we published the results. We showed it to Duke. They were blown away because we got 64% neuroplasticity change in 6 weeks. But the biggest thing was taking the same test 6 weeks later, no one was on the spectrum of dementia. And that's because we trained them to SMR. So that's, and we did a study in India just recently. And that's why I went there just last year in around Thanksgiving time. They did a study with students. They introduced them to theta just once. They did a speed test, a cognitive speed test, to see how their brain functions, because brain speed is important for learning. So when they did the test, they did the pre and post after just one theta session. Over 20% improvement with the student body when they just experienced one theta session. And so basically the brain knows how to activate our super memory. When we learned our language, we didn't sit down like books and repeat words. We absorbed the language because our brain was primarily in delta and theta, which is delta, there's no learning really that takes place there, but theta is that super state where if you can operate in that state, your memory increases. That's where the photographic memories come in, those kind of things that people have. And they say that we are all born with a photographic memory. But then when we learn to read, our brain forgot how to do it because it causes us to only use one hemisphere. So we need to balance the brain. So, but we have over 1,000 sessions. So I think in the body of this podcast, there's a link that you can share with the listeners. That's your link. So you can gift them 15 days on our app, but also they can get the book. So they can read the Thrive and Overdrive book for free. They can learn all about it. And then they'll understand that basically, if it's a neurological issue, we always tell people, if stress exacerbates your problem, makes it worse, then brain tapping will probably help you, because stress is, they say that 97% of all illness is either brought on or worsened by stress. So let's get the stress out of the equation so the body can heal itself, the mind can heal itself, and we can make better choices and decisions in our life.
Absolutely. And like I said, I brain tap myself, and I use it on my patients. So why don't you describe what brain tapping feels like?
Okay, so you're going to put the equipment on, your eyes are closed. Now, if you're using the app, you can do it with just your earphones. But to get the light treatment, which some of your listeners might understand laser, because I know you're an expert at that, but all the things a laser can do, low-level light can do, it just doesn't do it as fast and takes a larger dose. But your eyes are closed, you're going to see flickering light. So cranial nerve number 2 is going to say, hey, what's going on out there? What's happening? Well, when the right eye experiences data in the form of light, then the left hemisphere turns on. So, and then with the ears, we're balancing it. So our eye lights are mirroring our ear experience, which is sound. So this light and sound experience, they go through a progressive relaxation if they're listening to one of the sessions. Now, if they're listening to our neurologically based chiropractic series, I'm actually going to be educating people on why chiropractic and why brain tap. But most of the other sessions are not educational. Those are educational. So the doctor can actually educate their patient while they do those 6 sessions. But most of them are about relaxing, de-stressing, healing the body. And usually people will get into a hyper state where time is suspended. It's like going to a movie and you go in when it's dusk and you come out when it's dark and you go, wow, what happened? So much time went by because you went into that movie. Some people have that kind of island time experience. Most people, though, wake up feeling super refreshed, revitalized, ready to go, unless they're listening to one of our evening sessions, which their brain will take them into delta and put them to sleep. Most of the time, there's actually evidence that shows if you can do something like brain tap in the middle of the afternoon or take a power nap, you can reclaim up to 80% of the energy of the body that you had in the morning. So that's what most people either listen in the morning, they wake up, they do it, we call it digital coffee. So they wake up their brain in the morning, it's about a 10-minute session. They might do it in the afternoon, it's a 20-minute session. That's a little bit longer and a little bit more therapy, if you will. It's going to take them through the different brain waves, or they'll do it at night when they go to sleep.
Interesting. So are there any side effects, or is anyone who can't use it? Because people always ask that. Is it right for me?
Right. Anyone can do it as long as they're not photaic epileptic. Most people who are epileptic are not photaic, but if you can't do a video game, or you can't walk into a nightclub with strobe lights, or if you find that you're going down a country road where all the trees are flickering, some people get nauseous doing that, then what we recommend to do is just take the visor and put it up. Don't use the visor. But the ear lights, the people go, why do you have lights in the ears? Well, the ears are a perfect place to run energy through the body because we have meridians. So a lot of people will use it like for stop smoking or weight loss. They use a laser on different parts of the ear and trigger those meridian points. But we just bathe the ear in light, and then through photobiomodulation, it's going to look for the path of least resistance. It's going to go through the body and open up those meridian gates so energy can flow. And then just for people going, why would I want flickering lights in my eyes? That's going to keep me awake. No, what happens is they're just out of phase. So just like when you watch a movie and you think it's a continuous flow, it's not. It's a series of little images, but they're moving at over 30 frames per second. So the brain literally omits the black between the frames. We don't see that because it says that's useless information. When the brain's balanced, and you probably experienced this, you don't really experience the light. And that's what people are, because they're just out of phase. So the brain literally, the light is there just to keep the frontal lobe active. Because in our primitive brain, we have the freeze response, we have the fight or flight. So what happens as soon as there's danger, our brain freezes and the frontal lobe literally shuts down. But under stress in our day and age, because our bodies weren't designed for 21st century, our bodies were designed for hunting and gathering, living outside in nature, you know, beating our date over the head, dragging her back to the cave, you know, those kind of things. So our frontal lobe, even most listeners probably have had the experience where they're watching a scary movie and they close their eyes and go, hey, it's just a movie. You know, that's to shut down your frontal lobe. But under stress in our day and age, you don't want the frontal lobe to shut down. You want it to stay active because that's where your problem solve, your executive function happens. So also, light in the eyes activates 100% of the brain's neural network, 100%. We work a lot with a group called it's called NORA, Neuro Ophthalmology Research Association. And everyone knows this to be true, but I didn't realize how true it was until I started working with this group. Your eyes are responsible for 30% of your hearing. So if you close your eyes, you've actually shut down circuits that have to do with hearing. If you've ever been to a lecture and you couldn't see the lecture and you couldn't hear them, but as soon as you changed your position, now you have line of sight of the speaker and you can hear them, that's because our primitive brain has protected us. Like the best example I can give is you're sitting in a restaurant, we're having dinner, everything's going good, and then you hear 3 tables over, you hear somebody say, neurology, or you hear them say chiropractic, and you didn't hear anything else they said, but that reticular activating system says, whoa, there's something, I know what that is, I'm gonna now tune in. Well, our eyes do that. So if you think of our primitive brain, we're walking through the jungle, we don't need to know everything that's going on around us. We'd be overwhelmed and we couldn't make decisions. We need to know what we're gonna step on. Are we gonna step on a snake? Is there something out there that's gonna attack me? So, but we still sense the others. You know, there's still a sensing that happens. And now they're kind of linking that to the field that is our heart. Our heart center can be registered. We can register heart rate variability by up to 18 feet. And so we have this field of magnetic energy coming from our heart, which most people don't understand. We have 40,000 neurocells in our heart. So think about like a microchip in our heart. And our heart, that microchip, if you will, that brain in our heart talks twice as much to our brain than our brain talks to it. So our heart is actually controlling the system. And then when our brain gets the information, it then usually instructs the gut to produce the neurotransmitters we need. So it's a cycle, it's a system that happens. And just like memories, when people think, I'm just gonna go get this memory, and they wonder why they don't remember things. Well, if you've ever seen a functional MRI when somebody's trying to remember something, 6 or 7 places in the brain might light up. And then we reconstruct that memory. So let's say that one part of the brain is damaged, and that happens to have the images. And then another part of the brain is slowed down because it's not getting the images. So now all that information is jumbled up, and it's like our receiver, which is like the television receiver, we know that they're broadcasting the signal because we can bring another receiver in and it gets it, but the receiver we have isn't getting the signal. So we need to balance out the hemispheres. And a lot of that has to do with brain speed. Like in that study I was talking about earlier with cognition, we found that the left hemisphere was moving much slower than the right hemisphere. So we created a BrainTap series that sped up the left hemisphere and slowed down the right hemisphere. And we noticed that in 6 weeks, it balanced.
Fascinating stuff. I mean, I'm writing so much information down. When we're off, I'm going to have to go over half of this on my own and with you. This is great. I mean, it's drinking through a exciting intellectual fire hose. So, couple of things, you mentioned it, so I wrote it down. What's the difference between an on-demand library on the BrainTap app platform and the BrainTap headset?
Okay, so you can use the library. It just comes on your phone. You know, if you have a smartphone, you can download it and use it anywhere. Some people listen to only the audio at night because they don't want that stimulation before they go to bed. But most people do listen. So the headset is just that. And you can do that. Like if they want it free after this podcast, they can go to the link in the body of the copy, click on that link, they get it for free for 15 days. That's the BrainTap on-demand library. Now, there's more than what's there because we have over 1,000 sessions, but we give you access to about 200 sessions for free for 15 days. And then if you want to do more, we have a $10 subscription, a $30 subscription. If you buy the headset now, you get access to certain sessions all the time. So you don't have to buy the subscriptions, only if you want to supercharge it. We have what we call a power user. So some people will do that. And of course, the clinics, we do now have over 2,200 clinics using it.
Wow.
So what happens is they're putting people on with the headset. Now the headset, you know, with the blood flow and circulation improving, it's going to help reboot the brain, get people sleeping better. That's probably the biggest thing people use the BrainTap for. But you can do it with just sound. We find we have a study going on right now in Brazil. We have a group just doing the headset with the library, somebody just doing the library, and we're comparing the difference of what happens. We typically see about anywhere between 25 to 30% improvement with the headset, but we still get over 65% improvement with just the sound. So it's really good.
That's amazing. Where do you see BrainTap going in the next couple of years?
Well, we have a goal to affect 1 billion brains. So one of those steps so in America, we can get 300,000 brains if they all used it, which we know probably is never going to happen. So we go to India. We have 5 of the largest institutions in India, and their physiology departments and their neurology departments now have BrainTap and our HRV system. And 3 of those are already engaged in studies. So I see us proving that out. Duke University is our partner, and we have some programs going in Brazil. We just opened up China. So I think between India and China, we could get those 1 billion brains. But what I see happening is, whether it's BrainTap or some other method, everyone is going to start doing something to reboot their brain, because we can't keep going at 100 miles an hour without rebooting the brain. We just burn out our system. And that system I'm talking about is the neurohormonal. That's why so much fatigue and adrenal fatigue and all of these things, because that's like a generator during a storm. We should be using the electrical system, which is our sympathetic and parasympathetic. But so many people, that's an overwhelm. So now they go to their hormonal system, and that's not designed to regulate on a daily basis. That should only be triggered 2 or 3 times a week when a saber-toothed tiger is coming up on us, or we have to protect our tribe. But what happens is, it's happening now when we get a text, or we're driving in traffic, or we can't make our bills. So I think that what's going to happen is people are going to start to understand that they have to take the time, the downtime, to really reboot their nervous system and get the most out of their life.
Wow. I mean, 1 billion brains. That is, that's exciting, to say the least.
Yeah.
60 seconds or less. Where are you going to be in the next year?
Well, I plan on doing the same thing I'm doing now. I love getting out there, teaching, training, motivating people. I see, though, that hopefully I'll have a group of speakers and people out there doing this, because I can only see so many people I know. So I see myself training and hopefully continuing doing what I'm doing, but motivating others to get out there and speak on the BrainTap behalf. So we're always looking within our doctor group to find people who can speak to their local organizations, or maybe some of our national events. I'd rather have some more time with my grandkids back home on my boat in New Bern. But, we got to do what we got to do, because I think this message is so important. People don't understand how powerful their nervous system is if properly tuned. But if they're letting it run the course, you can't feel like you're on the bus with Freddy Krueger and he's driving you wherever he wants to go. You got to kick him off the bus sooner or later and take control of the bus and take it where you want to go.
I don't want Freddy Krueger anywhere near me. That's a great example.
Yeah.
Where can they find out more about you and more about BrainTap?
Well, I think the best thing for them to do to keep it kind of in-house is to go to that link you're going to provide. It's
Absolutely.
a BrainTap. They can go there. They can download my book. They'll then get some correspondence with us. If they really want to get it right now, probably go to YouTube and type in #BrainTap. There's hundreds of videos there that can explain. There's one that's actually called Just the Facts video. It's not a sales video. And that's been listened to over 60,000 times. So people like it. And if they really want to know the science, you can also see a picture of it there and what's going on. So I think that would be it. But I think the number one best thing is go to that link, download the app, try it for yourself. There's nothing like your own experience. So that's what I recommend.
I agree. I think everybody should give this a whirl. I think they're going to be very happy with the stellar results. I'm happy. I know you're so busy just to get you on here. I do hope to do this again as a follow-up. Everybody, Proven Health Alternatives, the developer of BrainTap, Dr. Patrick Porter, Dr. Rob, always yours in health.
Thank you.